First of all, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I think I respect Richard very much, and this program, if I had something like this when I was trying to get into real estate, it would have been really helpful. I kind of got into it in a very funny way. So what you guys are doing is awesome. So keep it up. And
Tell the story, Neema, about how you learned about commercial real estate. You
I
told me at
was,
lunch one day, and I thought it was great.
I graduated USC. I was probably the most lost soul ever. I studied abroad in Denmark. So I got this European flair, and then I came back and I graduated and I didn't know what to do in my life. I really had clueless. Still clueless, but I'm still doing this. And I tried a few different avenues, you know, back then, cell phone production and sales and gadgets and devices were pretty big. So I tried doing that a little bit. I realized it's not my cup of tea. My father owned a printing company. I did that for a little bit. You know, I did work a lot while I was in college. And it really helped me learn what I didn't want to do. That was a big part of my learning experience. Was I would take internships or, you know, a few hours a day here or there, and like in Merrill Lynch or whatever. And I just, you know, I realized maybe I don't want to do investment banking. And anyway, I graduated completely lost, visited one of my friends in Chicago that we studied abroad with. And we just like, come over, we'll hang out for a few days. I have nothing to do anyway, unemployed. And I'll never forget, I see his dad sitting in shorts and flip-flops in his office at home, and, you know, on a headset and like on a Zoom call, but or on a phone call of some sort. And I mean, this might sound a little shallow, but he showed me one of his dad's paychecks and the freedom that he had and how exciting the work was that he did. And I said, Dan, what does your dad do? And he says, well, he sells and develops commercial real estate. And I literally took a Post-it and I wrote down commercial real estate. And that was it. I came back to LA. I started researching it. You know, we didn't have as much resources as we do today. There were some websites like I think Glassdoor or Glass Ceiling was just starting. But most of my research was like calling people like, Mom, do you know what real estate is? She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, all right, well, I want to do real estate. She's like, okay, well, why don't you call my cousin that sells homes? I'm like, all right. And then I just started doing like coffee dates with people, and I started learning, maybe not residential, maybe commercial. And I'll tell you one thing that helps me, and I still keep it here, the LA Business Journal. I look at it every year. Every year they send out this massive list of the top 25 companies of each industry in LA. And I grabbed the book and I said, okay, I'm going to call the top 5 companies. And if one of them hires me, I'm in. And that was that's how I got in. I called and I said to the manager, I don't know the first thing about real estate. I'm completely clueless, but I will work harder than anybody you've seen. I'm honest, I'm dedicated, and if you give me a shot, I'll do it. And I interviewed with 3 out of the 5 companies, and I've been at Marcus and Millichap hired me, and I've been here since then, 22 years, 21 years.
You know what? That's such a cool story because, you know, you're really humble about it, Neema, and it comes through, which I appreciate and just love about you. But what's cool about that story is you started out not knowing what you wanted to do. You got like a breadcrumb that real estate might be something cool and lucrative. And then you attacked it when you got home, and you were proactive in just reaching out and being honest and saying, hey, I don't know how to do real estate, but I know I want to do real estate. I'm committed to it. I'm all in if you give me an opportunity. And that's what you basically just communicated and articulated, and it worked. And then, you know, and then it evolved from there. So tell us about your team today. So what do you do? What are you focused on? What kind of buildings do you sell? Like, give us a sense of your team that you run.
Sure. Our focus is core Los Angeles market, and we sell multifamily and development opportunities in LA. So basically, if you own an apartment building in the core areas of LA City, not even county, really, my focus is from downtown to the west side, and sometimes in the valley, and maybe sometimes like, the beach cities, but mainly just, dense core LA, and development opportunities that multifamily builders would like to get their hands on to build, is what we sell. And as my career grew and then my family grew, I started realizing you can't work 12-hour days anymore. And your time is not your own. You share your time with your wife and kids. So I started growing my team. And today I have a director of operations who's kind of my right-hand guy that, overlooks all the brochures, contracts, most of my sales team. He's my right-hand guy. Everything, he and I talk probably, I don't know, 6-7 times a day for 2 hours a day, either throwing ideas off together, discovering how to handle, tackle issues that we have on properties, or on how to assist our agents. So he's my director of operations. I have a transaction coordinator. She's also licensed. She does escrow management, due diligence gathering, and all the purchase agreements. I have a full-time marketing guy who does our brochures, our evaluations, our social media, the whole shebang. And then we just brought on a full-time analyst from USC, who's going to be helping us with analysis of looking at each of these values. And then behind that, we have 5-6 salespeople that do different geographical areas.
That's so cool, because that infrastructure, that team that you just described, all of those people, they work on the same team to allow you to do more of what you do best, which is sales and interacting with clients on a day-to-day basis. And they take care of servicing the business once you bring the business in, which is really a key component of what all salespeople have to figure out, is their highest and best use. So in other words, if you're really good at sales, you want to spend time in front of clients and interacting and advising and adding value and strategizing with clients. And you need the support of other people to kind of do some of the other things that allow you to actually execute on the sale. So that's awesome. Let me ask you this, Neema. You're a relationship guy. I can just tell, because I think we don't go way back, but I certainly know your name. I've known of you, and your reputation precedes you for some time. And then I had maybe 2 lunches with you, and I feel like I've known you forever. So a dinner and a lunch, and I feel like we go way back. But talk to me about relationships and how that plays into sales.
Thank you for the kind words. I mean that. It becomes, so you have to look at the relation. For me, the relationship is more valuable than the sale at any moment of a transaction. So if you always put the relationship first, you preserve the relationship. If you put the transaction first, then what happens is you lose trust. And, it does take some time to get there. I mean, when you're young, you're so hungry. Like, I'm talking about just like broke. You want to make that sale happen. And I can appreciate that. And we still do. But I quickly learned that once you put your own intentions before your clients or whoever you're working with, once your intentions become a priority, everything gets messed up, because it becomes blatantly transparent that you're in it for yourself. And we're a service provider. we're hired to protect people and to sell their real estate and to put a transaction together. So, I mean, everyone knows we're in it for the money, right? Like, we're not doing it because this is not a nonprofit. We're we're profit driven, but I've learned to put the relationship with people as a priority. And I think once you do that, you can never really go wrong, because things can go wrong, but you just keep the relationship as a focus. So we have issues that go wrong all the time. If I make a mistake, I'm very honest about it. Like, guys, I goofed. I'm really sorry. I totally forgot this. I was so busy. I forgot to include this in the contract. How can I fix it? Or if it's a problem in a transaction, I'm just not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to come with solutions and work with the client. But, if you hide things, or if you try to make my goal first a priority, then I feel like you always lose. And I'll tell you, my brother and I buy properties together, and we have very different work styles. And I made that decision also in a personal life, where if the relationship with my brother is more valuable than the money that we're trying to figure out, or this property or the vacancy or whatever, then I'm going to handle our dialogue different. Because when we first started, I was like, oh my God, you got to do it this way. What are you doing? And he started getting a little bit like, oh, dude, calm down. I don't work for you. I'm your brother. And I was like, okay, got it. And I made the relationship a priority, and, just take a little bit more of a chill approach.
Is he an older brother or younger brother?
Younger. Fantastic question. He's younger.
I have a younger brother as well, who actually works with Marcus and Millichap in New Jersey. So I understand that dynamic, and you have to put the relationship above all else. And I think when you work with family in any capacity, it kind of heightens that that awareness. Yeah, Jed, exactly. That's my brother. So great point. And this is also, you have, Neema, I've noticed, like, a certain energy about you, an aura about you, where
coffee. It's coffee. There's nothing else, dude. I'm highly caffeinated.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Maybe Red Bull or espresso or something. But so there's an energy. Talk to me about how you think that plays in this just sales. And I've always thought of sales, to your point, just taking a step back actually before you answer that question. I've always thought about sales as, I'm not selling you anything unless it's going to add value to you and you need it.
Yeah.
Like we're here to advise and be there for you. And then when and if there's a real need that we can actually provide a service to, then yes, we're going to be promotional of what we can do to help you. But we're not here to just sell for the sake of selling, which really translates to relationships, because it means you're interested in what's best for them genuinely. And people, it's almost like, I've heard it said this way, like some brokers, they have commission breath. Like, all they care about is they want their commission, and you have to be the opposite of that. It's like people will get a whiff of that and it'd be so turned off. But the master salespeople, and this is where I think your secret sauce is, they have a way of putting that to the side and just focusing on what's best. But I think also in tandem with that, there's an enthusiasm and there's an energy to what you do.
Sure.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. There is the relation, being relationship driven is the main part of it, in terms of, keeping the client's goal in mind. And I think when you're earlier in your career, where you need the money more, just the reality of sales is, especially in our business, we're commission only, right? Like, if we don't close, we don't make money, and then you don't eat. So, like, if you like eating, we gotta close. So that drives you. But once you have a little bit saved up, it's a little bit easier. So that's a catch-22. But the part of the energy, what I've learned, especially later, is I'm kind of a moody person, honestly. And at times when my energy level is low, or I'm not the best version of myself, I just don't make myself available, or I find a way to regroup, because I'd rather be on and active and smart and helpful. And if I'm not, I'll usually just take time off. And I'm not talking about like, you know, it's 4 times a day. It's maybe once every 2 weeks, once a week, or whatever it is, where my thing is to go to the beach or go for a bike ride or whatever, just to kind of like, put it all aside and forget about it and regroup and go into nature or do whatever, and kind of come back to like a regular status where you can actually figure out how to solve problems and not be stressed out or whatever it is. And I made a big boo-boo this year. It's actually crazy because you're still learning, where somebody really had to get a hold of me, but I knew that I wasn't at the moment that I could help a transaction. It was like a Friday at 3 o'clock. I had to pick up something for my wife. I was running. I knew nothing would change between Friday and Monday or the weekend. And the guy's like, dude, I got to get a hold of you. I'm like, great. I called him, and I was in the wrong mindset, and I said something wrong, and it totally ticked him off, right? And I was like, damn it, I should have just taken the deep breath, it can even be like a 2-minute thing where you just do some breathing and kind of regroup yourself, and then call the client. And I didn't. I rushed into it, and I blew it. I totally blew it. I pissed him off. I said something I shouldn't have said.
But you know what? You're speaking to something that's really critical. And Judith just put it in the chat. It's mindset, but it's also managing yourself. And it sounds like you're learning how to that experience is just a layering of the importance of being able to manage yourself in your own mental space, which is absolutely critical, because really, in effect, what you're doing in sales, in our sales, which is a larger ticket sales, and you mentioned how it's straight commission and you got to be on your game. But it's, and by the way, we're doing things to onboard people like all of you in a way where you do get paid through the fellowship for a certain period of time to ease that onboarding and transition into the business. But eventually, once you're humming and you're an independent contractor, it's really important to manage your own kind of mental, the way Neema is talking about and describing. That way you can be the best version of yourself in front of your clients and really lead them. Because if you can't lead yourself, you're not going to be able to lead the client. And that's really what you're doing. Totally. You're really leading the client and influencing the client.
100%, 100%. And you don't have to leave the country for 4 weeks and regroup. I mean, you can literally just turn your phone off, do some breathing, or go for a swim, or whatever your thing is, and then come back into the world, to this world, which is kind of a crazy world, and be available at your best level, not just because you had to. So learning.
I think Cedric believes in that too. I think he was working on some type of relationship with the Calm app or something. I think I heard, but I don't know if that ever came to fruition. But Cedric's always working on creative ideas to promote these different ideas to all of you and make you aware of them, because it's so. Headspace.
Oh, I did Headspace for a long time. That's great.
Headspace is coming soon, which is really cool. So Neema, you mentioned something earlier. You started buying deals with your brother. Can you talk about that? So you've become an owner now.
Yes.
You obviously grounded yourself in the fundamentals of brokerage first and sales, and learned how to advise and do work on behalf of other people. And that's translated to what you can do for them, you can also do for yourself. And you're also on the front lines of deals. But how is the ownership side of things played out for you?
I mean, it's great. It's where you want to be at a certain point in your career. It's for me, it's kind of a passive approach because running a team and having a family is so time consuming. And if you want it to be a really good operator of real estate, it's also time consuming. And I just haven't been able to do all three. So we do buy and we do manage them, but we have third-party management companies. My brother and I split the work, and we're not the most aggressive. We're just more long-term. I'm
Yeah.
43, he's 38. And I feel like we have, a good amount of years of hard work of putting some eggs together. And then if you make some investments and you watch them grow, I mean, it's funny is I just applied for a loan, and you kind of wake up one day and you look at your list of real estate and you're like, that's me. Like I didn't know what escrow was when I started. I did not know the word escrow. My
And
boss
now,
told me to call.
how many units do you have now?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's not that many. I'm not trying to sound cool, but it's, we own some stuff with clients, probably like 150 in LA. And then I also got my family to buy like another 200. So,
That's
and
awesome.
we're
I
all,
mean, it's amazing to start from, like me, like a lot of other guests that we've had in this boot camp. I think you're seeing a theme where I didn't know what the word escrow was. I didn't know what the word cap rate was. I mean,
clueless.
and we grow, you can grow into it. And then it translates ultimately to ownership and building up an equity position if you're willing to do the work and really work hard as it relates to sales. Because it's, we're describing the end state, but there's a lot of trials and tribulations in between, and you've got to have the grit and perseverance to kind of grit it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm laughing because 21 years ago, my boss goes, Neema, call escrow and get this document. And I go, yes, sir, no problem. And I wrote it down and I went in the conference room and I called my dad and I go, Dad, what's escrow? And he's like, what? What do you mean? And I go, dude, my boss just told me call escrow and do this. And if I ask him what's escrow, he's going to fire me. I can't be this stupid. So what's escrow? And he's like, oh man, it's a third party company, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, got it. All right, cool. Let me go back and tell him, who do I call? I'll never forget it. Woo.
That's awesome. Well, Neema, this has been great. Today I have a unexpected call that I have to take immediately. But Unia is on the line, our head of recruiting. So it works out great because she can facilitate all of your questions of Neema. And I hope everybody enjoyed so far hearing his story, and he's available for the next half hour to take questions. I just didn't want to, even though I had this conflict that came up like midstream, I didn't want to miss today. And I love being here with all of you guys. So Unia, if you could open it up to questions from the group for Neema. And then Neema, I really appreciate you sharing and being so generous of yourself and giving back and sharing your story. And it's awesome what you're doing. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's truly my pleasure. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Neema. That's a great story. Just like everyone here that's trying to get into the commercial real estate space, it's always inspiring for them to hear a person as successful as yourself now could not understand what escrow is at the beginning. And in order for us to make sure that these fellows understand, escrow and more, we've created these amazing programs within our firm. So with that, I have a couple of people that are interested to dig a little deeper into your story and have questions. And I will start with Natalie Lopez.
Hello, thank you. And thank you, Neema, for coming here today and speaking. I had a specific question on your bio. It did say that within the first 3 years that you were with the firm, you became a senior associate. I kind of wanted to know if you could break down those 3 years for me. Was it kind of a goal did you set for yourself on what skills and what you were going to see yourself within those 3 years, or did you kind of just grab every opportunity you saw and just ran with it?
it's funny you ask it, because if you ask me how my first year was, it's a very different story than my first 3 years. So sales is a bit of a, I think if you're going to give sales a shot, you should do it early in your life for several reasons. Your expenses are low. You have a lot more free time, and you don't have, people that rely on you for money, which is, it's really hard if you're young and if you're older and you have a family, and because the sales cycle is typically, 18 months to get like anything started. It takes a long time for, things to roll out. And I share that first because even if you fail in sales, there's nothing wrong with it, because I learned so much in the first few years on how to present myself, how to keep the client in mind, how to adjust my energy level to the person I'm sitting in front of. How to tackle issues in a calm way that the other party is not freaking out. Like, these are all things that you learn in sales that I tell people all the time, that if you're coming to a place like Marcus and Millichap, you're going to go through so much training of real estate knowledge, sales, and everything that I just mentioned, that even if you don't make it, you've won. It's a university in my eyes of learning how to do sales, because guess what? If this doesn't work out for somebody that does it, they're going to need to do that in a different environment. You're going to have to go get a job at Starbucks. You got to go sell yourself to the manager that wants you to be the barista. If you want to be an accountant, you got to sell yourself to the team or the firm that wants to see if your personality matches the accountant's, culture. So that really helped. But to answer your question was, I sucked for 18 months. It was really hard for me. I couldn't figure out how to, I couldn't figure out how to do it. I really had a hard time, to the point where I went to my manager at the time. His name was Steve. And I said, dude, I'm young. I think I'm smart. I'm not the smartest guy in the room for sure, but I work hard and I'm smart enough to get it. And I can't figure this out. I'm having a really hard time. So after God, I think it was at least a year, maybe 13 months, 14 months of like zero success. I wrote him a note, kind of like, dude, by October, if I don't have $100,000 either in commissions earned, either in listings or in escrows or closed, I'm leaving, because I can't I bring myself down to a place of come in every day and you have to make 60, 70 phone calls, and you got to be in that mental game of like, you can't show weakness or else people feed on that. And it was weird, because once I set that deadline for myself, something changed. And then I started getting success. So my first year and a half was terrible. And then I reached that senior associate status or whatever it was by the third year, just because I think I took a different perspective of, it's either hit it or go home. And that kind of changed things for me. And I put a little time pressure on myself, but it wasn't like a goal setting strategy. It was really like, if I don't do it, I'm leaving. A lot of people do goal setting and they're good at it. I'm not really good at goal setting, but what I did was I said, if by October 1st, if I don't make it, I'm out of here. And then something shifted, and then, here I am. Still here.
You shared that you may not be great at goal setting, but it seems like you're very good at mind setting, which is a totally different ball game. Unlike you, a lot of young people that are getting into the industry we're providing them with the tools and resources for them to be successful getting into this business and knowing what escrow means right from the get-go. So what we're doing different is we're offering a fellowship program, which is a 24 months training program that's designed to unleash the potential of everybody here on this platform. And the fellows receive training. They receive coaching and tools and resources for them to be successful and understand all the different ounces of commercial real estate brokerage. And unlike Neema, we are paying the fellows for the first 2 years as they train and learn, because a lot of agents, just like Neema, did not have this gateway to get into the business and be able to be successful in their roles. So what we're doing with this, we're using a very competitive salary in addition to benefits for all the fellows to be successful as brokers. But that's a great mentality, Neema. Next question is Harush.
I think it's me, right? It's Shaw. Yeah. Thank you. Yep. Thank you very much, Yunya and Neema, for being here. I just have a side question here. Speaking of more of the mentality, coming from the sense of being at Marcus and Millichap and working on specific deals, and on the side being with your brother and perhaps following any further notions of investments. Did those two mindsets differ by any chance? And if they did, by what metrics? And more importantly, how did Marcus and Millichap help you mentally pursue your own personal investment goals?
I mean, the mindset, being around a firm, let me go backwards. Being at a firm like this, you just see, you're exposed to so many different avenues of commercial real estate that you learn what everyone else is doing. And that's a way of learning what you want to do. So I sell apartments, and that's what we buy, although we bought a portion of a single tenant property recently. And you start seeing some of the older guys in the office, and they own real estate, and they all bought well, and it became part of the vision where you want to be very successful at what you're doing, but you want to keep the goal in mind that having real estate as a passive income or a backfall is very, very helpful, especially when you're older. And it was kind of one of those reminders, and you get the reminder because you're around it all the time, and you start seeing people buying properties, and you're like, dude, why can't I do it? And really the way that we bought it together with my brother is we put some money together and we bought one building, and it was a small little property that we found. It was like 9 units, I think, on Harbor. It was a small 12 units. And we fixed up some units, and he did some work, I did some work. We self-managed at the time, which was gnarly. We would, we had to renovate a unit. It's like, all right, well, let's go find a handyman. And we just go look for a handyman. Like, I don't know, we just did it. And then you kind of like stop 10 years later and look back, and you're like, we're still looking for a good handyman, by the way. But it just kind of goes. It's like an avalanche. The hardest thing was to do it, really. Actually, I'm gonna tell you something. You reminded me of something. I was so nervous to buy this apartment building. Oh man, this is really funny. I was so nervous to buy this apartment building. The lady's name was Helen. She was an old lady, but she was the sharpest lady I've met. I mean, this lady had it all together. And we had an agreed price and terms, and she was going to carry financing because it was our first time and who would qualify and all that stuff. So I'm like, Helen, would you please carry the financing for me? She's like, sure. And even to get to that point, I had a lot of emotional support, like running into my friends' offices and going, dude, what should I do? Should I buy it? Why not? And he was like, just shut up and buy it. I'm like, okay, fine. And I went to her house with the contract, and she changed the terms on me. And she said, I reconsidered, like, I'm not gonna, finance you at 4%. It's gotta be at 4.5%. And I'm not kidding, dude, I freaked out. to the point where like I'm texting my friend going, she told me 4.5%. What do I do now? You know, because you're like, you know, you're freaking out. Am I going to make money? Am I going to lose it? This is, you know, all my eggs in a basket. And he's, you know, his message was basically just do it. Like, don't worry about it. Just do it. And I mean, this lady completely changed her mind, and I agreed to it. I'm like, fine, we'll do it. But if I had not done it, I probably would have still never bought a property. So, you know, just going for it sometimes is the hardest challenge. Even when I bought my house, it was the hardest decision I made. But now I kind of wish I bought like 20 of them, you know? It
Great.
was such a hard decision, but like, oh God, it was so easy, you know, and 10 years later, it's like, dude, such an idiot. I should have bought the bigger house. Why did I buy the smaller house?
That's very inspiring. So even in situations where we're very unsure of what we're doing, we need to just do it.
Yeah. And, you know, believe in yourself. Fear is so powerful, but it's not powerful in a good way. It's just powerful in a bad way. So one thing I'm continuing to try to teach myself is in that moment of time where you make a decision, where you're, you know, you thought about it, you come from a place of love, you're like, dude, what's good for me and my family? My decision is this. And then fear kicks in and your ego kicks in and 1,000 ideas go wrong. You just got to go back to the positive. Wait a minute, I made a decision to do X. Why am I listening to all these voices? Quiet them down, keep moving forward.
Great.
Thank you very much, Neema. Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Next question, Anil.
Thank you. Hi, Neema. It's really nice to meet you. I had a really good time hearing about your sales background, being a finance student. So reading your bio, I had a question about how you were dealing with commercial tenants and triple net leases. I was wondering if you could describe what the deal making and deal, like how is the process like when you're trying to negotiate the deal with the tenants, trying to get the best price? You kind of went into it a little earlier. And especially, how are you keeping those relationships, making sure that you're not getting a little too greedy and pushy with them?
On the single tenant property, actually talking about full circle, we bought it with the guy that got me into real estate, ironically. The guy that I wrote down commercial real estate, we bought it together. So I'm not really involved in the day-to-day negotiations, but I can tell you is that when we went to go buy the property, one thing that younger people don't do just because the use of technology is you know, boots on the ground where you're really involved. And it's something that it's not anyone's fault. It's just you have Google, you have, you know, Google Maps, you have internet, you have everything at your fingertips. And people kind of forget, like the way that we bought that property, it's a Best Buy in St. Louis, Missouri. Like I didn't even know where St. Louis, Missouri was, right? And when we went to go buy it, me and my partner spent 2 days in St. Louis, Missouri. We got some little beat up hotel room and, you know, we just walked around. Do you like living here? Do you like working here? What do you think of the Best Buy? How often, you know, do you go shopping at that mall? Is there anything happening in the area? What's crime like? Blah, blah, blah. And that part of it really teaches you a lot about real estate, because at the end of the day, real estate is, you know, it's a tangible asset and it's all location, right? Good or bad. I mean, you can buy in bad locations and do well, it's fine. But you got to know the real estate, which helps you negotiate, which helps you figure out what you're dealing with and how to move, you know, your little pawn pieces. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I just wanted to be clear that we actually have a guy in my office, young guy, 23. He just came from KB Homes. He's an SC grad. And he was trying to price a building. And I go, dude, you've never been there. How can you price it? what do I need to go for? It's freaking far. It's an hour drive, Pomona, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, we do not work that way. Get in your car, drive down there, spend half an hour, walk around the property, take some photos, touch feel, go get a taco at a local taco shop, and come back, and then we can make a decision together. So it's really, really hard. You should use technology, but you should, real estate is not stocks.
Yep.
You're buying tangible assets.
That's a great point. Thank you for that.
Sure.
And the next question is from Kat Kim.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, thank you for your time, by the way. And I really love what you just said, because for our property, before, we actually, as a team, never went out there, but I actually went out there. And what was really cool, thank you, was we mapped out the property, and while I was driving it, I was like, oh, there's a Walgreens. Oh, there's this. And it was really cool to have a map in mind and have an idea of the property and then visit it and go, okay, so this, and exactly what you said. So that's actually my favorite part, is visiting the property and seeing all the research, and you're seeing it with your eyes. So that's really amazing. But my question is actually more geared towards relationships. You made me think of a lot of times where I should have maybe taken a beat and been like, hey, let me just step back, or just take a breath, and let me just present this, or let me speak about it, just because I've said the wrong things a lot of times as well. And I realized what I did after the fact. And
Sure.
So with that, as a leader, there's a sort of decisiveness of saying the right thing. And so how have you tackled that as a leader in of a support team as well? They actually support you so that you can do your job. And I'm pretty sure there's conflicts, or when people just might not do their part. And so how do you handle that relationship in that decisiveness, or being able to take a beat?
I mean, I'll tell you a little secret. I use silence a lot. And it's a funny answer, and I hope I'm answering your question. But when I'm on a call and they ask me something and I don't know the answer, I don't answer. I just pause, to the point where people think you're kind of a little weird, but I tell them, like, for example, Kat, give me a second, I'm thinking about it. It's so much, it sounds crazy, but I think people rather you take 5 seconds for your little neurons to connect. And, if I say this and that happens, and because your brain works pretty quick, right? Like, much faster than your mouth sometimes. But I very often, I mean, I do it all the time. I say, let me think about it. Just give me 1 sec. And I'll sit there and I'll think about it. And if I can answer it right there, I'll answer it right there. But at least I didn't like jump to say something, and then I end up saying something wrong, or I sound, unintelligent, or whatever the mistake might be. So the pause really works, or I'll get back to you. Like, there's nothing wrong with telling somebody, I don't know the answer, I'm going to get back to you. I need an hour, a day, a week, a month. I'll get back to you. Because I'd rather get back to them, and you got to get back to them, right? You can't just forget about them. But I think, that taking the time to think about it, and I'll tell you guys, when you're interviewing for a job or wherever you're going, or, what's funny is, in the world of brokerage, you're interviewing for a job every time you get a listing. You're asking somebody, please hire me to sell your property. So I've been on 65,000, job appointments in my life. It's like, it's never ending. You're really being interviewed every time. And when they ask me questions like, would you do your commission for 3%? The other guy will do it for 3%. Why don't you do it for 3%? You want to just say yes, because you don't want to lose the opportunity. But I just usually say, let me think about it and get back to you. Or when someone over my team asks me something that I don't know what the answer is, or I got to just map it out, let me think about it, I'll get back to you. So I don't know if that answers it, but that's really, really, really helped me.
My question was kind of, that's very helpful as well. Thank you. I was wondering, like, when your support team messes up, like they drop the ball on something and they give you that phone call that says, hey, Neema, I didn't do this, or this didn't happen. And then you get that phone call, like, what do you do in that moment? Because you're a leader and you know that you have to, this person is an important person on your team and you will need to.
This just came up last week. We hired a new gal. She didn't know how to deal with something. She dealt with it the wrong way. She CC'd the wrong person, gave out information shouldn't have been disclosed, and it was a boo-boo, right? The first thing I do is put out the fire. Like, just fix it. You got to fix it. In our world, you have to fix it immediately, or else it can become a big issue.
Yeah.
And then at times when she wasn't feeling badly about herself because she made a mistake, or, you know, things are heated and elevated, and I got the client yelling at me on the phone and she can hear it. And, you know, at that time, it's really hard to learn a lesson. Like, you're not going to process it. So it's going to sound funny, but I'm like, dude, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. And I gave her a day to think about it. Like, you know, what I'm doing is you go think about it and see what went wrong. And then 2 hours later or next day or something, I'm like, can we just talk about that? Like, what happened? Why did you think? Because I always focus on the lesson. You know, me reprimanding her isn't going to do anything except make her feel really crappy about herself and not like working for me or with our team. Can you explain to me why you thought that was the right way to go? Can you see how it hurt us? Do you see how if I did it this way, it would have worked better? So I just go for the lesson rather than, you know, to learn the task rather than the outcome. But I put out the fire first. Like, you know, you got to put the fire out immediately. But I don't, you know, pinpoint the problem immediately because this just sucks.
And that's really great leadership skills there. If I didn't have a job, Neema, I would think about being part of your team because not only are you being self-aware, but you're also helping the people on your team understand that, hey, if you mess up, just think about what you did and let's chat about it. And you're creating an opportunity to have an engagement of what could go wrong, understanding that in business, we are dealing with human beings that are always going to have that boo-boo, like you called it. So we're moving on to the next question from Joel.
Hi, my name is Joel Denton from Howard University, and just want to tell you thank you for being here and spending the time out to just speak to us. And my question was, after reading your speaker bio and knowing that you helped to facilitate many successful multi-family investment transactions, and overall this helped you to just think like an investor, and overall helped you to just understand like different challenges. So like my question is like, can you just describe the challenges that you really faced, you know, on like in your day-to-day, and like how do you overcome them from like an investor perspective?
What are the challenges that I deal with on a day-to-day, or what are the challenges that they deal with that I help them overcome?
Well, you could just, if you don't mind, just spending a little time on like both, like let's see.
I mean, one of the challenges that I deal with are we're in a changing market right now. So, you know, we have inventory that's been priced with interest rates that were 3%, 3.25%, and now they're 4.5%. So how do you deal with that? And you have clients that are getting more and more motivated and afraid. So you have to keep them calm. You got to price the deals correctly and you got to get them sold. That's a real tough challenge right now. And brokers feel it first because, you know, if the guy doesn't sell, it's not the end of the world. He still owns his building. If the buyer doesn't buy it, not the end of the world. He still has his money. But we're stuck in the middle where the market's getting educated. So that's a little bit tricky. I think the other challenges we have is, you know, we're really selective on team members. And I'm actually at a point where I'm kind of maxed out. But it was finding good help was really hard. It was really, really hard to find, good team members to get to a place where you can move 100 miles an hour and not bump into lanes. That was a challenge. And I think one of the challenges that our clients deal with is being a landlord in Los Angeles is not easy right now. There's a lot of anti-landlord legislation and sentiment and feelings. What COVID did for collections on a few buildings has been really hurtful. So we're trying to sell a building now. The guy's at 83% collections on a $12 million building, and he's desperate to sell, and he's my number one client. And the guy calls me more than my wife does. And I'm like, dude, I don't have an answer for you. Like, you got to give me on the phone with you is not me on the phone with the buyer. Like, give me some time. I don't have an answer. But when they're hurting, you're hurting. So it's just finding a way to keep him calm and just, give me the time to work. But preserving the relationship. And, there's so many guys that do what I do, like not having them look somewhere else because, oh, that guy, maybe is less busy than you are. He can give it more attention. So you never want someone to feel that, right? That like you have so much going on that you can't handle them. But the challenges are being a landlord in Los Angeles is tough right now for multifamily. And I think on our side is just, finding and keeping good team members that can help your business get to a place where people want to work with you.
Thank you.
Sure.
And then last question comes from Michael.
Oh, this is just a real quick question. Thank you for being here today. My name is Michael Callender from Los Angeles. I go to Santa Monica College. I was just writing down some notes. I wanted to see, what was that book that you showed us? It was Los Angeles Business Journal?
It's the Los Angeles Business Journal.
Okay. All right.
And, they have it's expensive. Actually, they have a student rate.
Okay.
But they send out a journal every week.
They have a journal too. Cool.
And if you want to know anything happening, look at that first headline: landlords hard to help. This thing tells you who's active, who's hiring, where the opportunities are. It's the only really journal that I'm not a big reader. I kind of wish I was more, but if you want to do business in LA and kind of know where to go, this signing of this is really helpful.
Thank you for that, sir. Thank you for being here too.